You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast, and I'm very excited to have Haley Robinson on the show. She is somebody I really noticed on Instagram, her use of video, really engaging content, and really just a fascinating individual. So I said, Haley, will you come on to the show? So we have Haley Robinson. Welcome to Something Rather Than Nothing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. So the big question starting right off is, when you were born, Haley, were you an artist?
Honestly, I've always had a little bit of creativity in me. It wasn't until I hit, I'd say maybe when I was 5, I started getting into piano lessons and dance lessons. And so I started creating my own dances and creating songs and music. I'm not the best, but I always tried my darndest.
And so do you think you had just when folks are born that, there's an artistic or a creative component to everybody, or you got a bigger piece of that?
I think it depends. Honestly, it sounds crazy to say this, but I feel like it's passed down. I was adopted, and honestly, my adoptive family isn't a huge musical family. They tried as well, but they weren't the greatest musical people. And when I met my bio family, it wasn't until I found out my bio dad is a drummer, a guitarist in a band and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes sense to why I just absolutely loved music. And I felt so connected to music and wanting to play it and everything. Yeah. So I'm lucky that my adoptive mom did put me into music, but it wasn't because she loved music herself. It was because I wanted to try it.
Yeah. You're a very expressive young person, I'd imagine.
I was a drama queen as a child. Well, yeah.
Still. Haley, I wanted to just acquaint folks, with who you are and the content that I referenced. When I chatted with you briefly, I was mentioning that one of the pieces that drew my eye to your video content and TikTok content was this immediacy and this energy that you had, but it was also super engaging and at times confronting, which is something I like or I appreciate because I think that process is important. Can you just talk about your relationship with video and kind of how you create now, and if there's something different about, creating TikTok videos or that type of format in immediacy?
It's different. It's kind of like a blog, but in a very short clipped blog. So you have to be really careful about what you're posting or trying to put everything into one video. But it's a very creative outlet. You can get serious stories out there in a creative and fun way for people to want to watch. But I just mostly try and be me, just being me and sharing my story and hoping that people will understand, and maybe someone who's going through the same thing will feel less alone because of what I'm posting. I just want to be able to connect people essentially with what I'm posting.
Yeah. One of the big topics you bring up and that I really enjoy for myself and thinking about is about identity. And, I think a lot of times as humans, we're viewed a certain way, or who are you? And, where do you come from? What's your race? And when you put forth that content, is it, do you experience a useful back and forth with the audience as far as tackling those questions? Because they're big questions. Like I ask them for myself, class, and race. What happens for you? Is it a good reciprocal relationship that occurs?
Mostly, it is mostly good. Luckily, I haven't come across very malicious people so far, which is very lucky on my part. And it's mostly just a lot of people trying to reach out to me and help me as well, because, I'm going into this world knowing nothing. I don't really have a lot of family to support me on this journey, or a lot of, I didn't have a lot of real life friends here supporting me. So it was all meeting people online and them coming to me and helping me, or me coming to them and asking questions. And so it's been so far really, really lovely. As much as I don't love the internet, it's helped me connect and, helped me on my journey. I actually had someone finding my bio dad's name on like a Cree voters list. And I had absolutely no idea like what tribe I was from, who I was. And she just messaged me out of nowhere and she's like, hey, like, this is your dad, by the way. And it's just like, it's crazy to think that there's people out there also willing to help me, just strangers on the internet. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I appreciate what, what you had to say, because I know that when you, bring up these issues, which isn't always easy to bring up. Like you're looking for the engagement and the understanding. And heck, there's a philosophy podcast, so we're supposed to be like, thinking about, questions of identity. But anyways, I really appreciate that. My question was based on, what your experience has been, and it's good to hear. And of course, this provides the ability for us to be able to connect and have this conversation, which honestly wouldn't happen otherwise. So I just love that. All right, Haley, let me just go right to it. You're a gifted artist. What is art? What's art? What are you up to creating?
To me, art creating can be, so far for me right now, it's in my videos, but it used to be a vast majority of everything for me. I had to kind of limit it because I have a really bad ADHD brain. So I start on one project and then I'll start on another project while this one's unfinished, and then go back and forth. But art can be anything. It's so subjective and so vast that you can't really put it down to one thing. And especially because everyone's opinions and minds are so different. You could ask somebody else what their opinion on art is, and they could be like, oh, I think life is art. Or you could go to somebody else and be like, I think painting is art, right? Like it's very much, but personally for me too, I think in general, living your life is art. Everything around you is art.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, there's the art of living. I mean, there's been a lot of books, along those lines. And I think these discussions for me are always so interested, because I think a lot of times we drop back and to say like living, like being able to live. I know what I hear a lot. I hear a parenting, right? Things that we won't normally think of, like the art and the decisions that go into, an artful way of doing things. Now, your answer complicates my next question, which is okay. But so we're involved in art activity in you are as well, and humans are. But what is the role when we're being artful or doing art, or how we're doing things? What is the role of art itself?
I say the role of art is essentially just, it's bringing people together and connecting with something, or feeling an emotion, or just uniting people. That's the role of art, is uniting people and creating an emotion, or creating a connection with either the art itself or with the people looking at the art or experiencing the art.
Yeah. Arts, the COVID pandemic, I've done most of the podcasts, through that time. And when the pandemic first happened, I was like, why the hell am I going to talk about art? Like, it was, that kind of shock, right? Like at first everybody was like, we're all going to die. Like, like, at least I was. And so I was like, well, how am I going to talk about, art? But, I would say what I've generally seen is that, rather than there being like a reaction to things like doing art in really tough times, that there's just been this like deep need to consume it, create it, to process emotion. And, during these times, do you think the role of art has changed during the pandemic for us?
Oh, 100% it has. 100%. Well, like you said, during COVID, that's when I actually started my TikTok. Is, COVID happened. I had no job. I had nothing to do. I was like, you know what? Let's download TikTok. Let's see what the whole hype is about. And next thing you know, I'm posting really personal stories of myself on there. And yeah, it just like grew from there. But definitely when the pandemic hit, the role of art definitely changed. And I feel like it's going more into more of like a technology sense and trying to connect people through like technology and their computers and phones and everything like that. I feel like that's where it's going now. Everything is heading to a digital world. I don't know if I'll be able to keep up with that, but I'll try my darndest.
So and on that, so you started the TikTok at the pandemic's the opportunity and the ability to do that. What's different about TikTok and other platforms? Like what I mean, I've noticed differences, and I've mentioned a couple things that I've noticed, but what's different about the environment?
The environment is very much like you would go on Facebook or Instagram and it's very like you stop at a post and keep scrolling. But with TikTok, it's just continuous videos. You're continuously being fed like content over and over. There's no pausing unless you pause yourself. And so it's quick entertainment. So people eat it up really quickly and right away, and they get the gist of it, and then they move on to the next video. I think that's the difference between TikTok.
Yeah. Now, I got to make clear, like, I'm asking this question for the general audience who might not know about TikTok. I don't need this information. I'm fully aware of what it is. No, actually, it's fair. It's very helpful because I do a podcast, so it's like audio, right? So I think about audio, but for me, the power of video is like, because you get to see in the audio that's there, it has, like I said, that immediacy to it. I wanted to ask the big question, and I never know when to ask it, but I wanted to get it in there. Title of the show is why is something rather than nothing. And the question I ask, like the big philosophical question is like, why is there something rather than nothing?
I think there's something rather than nothing because even though nothing can speak words as well, something can totally, like, you can look at nothing and create your own kind of emotion and your own feel of it. But creating something to put out there, you are giving people something to think about and creating an emotion for them instead of them creating it themselves. If that.
Yeah. I can't revise your answers, and the answers are also completely different. As a matter of fact, when I answered the question on an episode, somebody interviewed me. If you ask me it right now, I might give a different answer because it's like, yeah. So
exactly. I was also like writing down your questions, and I was trying to write down answers, but I just decided not to because my answers kept changing. I was like, I just can't.
We're definitely gonna share in that. One of the things I ask guests, because I tend to luckily have guests from different areas of the world, is in Calgary, all right, and where you are. Can you tell us what the art scene is like, or like some places, the reason I asked that, I mean, some places have very vibrant art scenes. Some places have art scenes that you wouldn't expect that are like really big or underground. What's your experience of the art scene by you?
Calgary is starting to get a better art scene. It's very inclusive as well. You need to know people to be able to like get inside the art scene at all. But I think they're starting to get a lot better. They're starting to try to create more pieces out there for people to explore and look at. And they're starting to get more artists that are actually from Calgary. And it's getting there. Calgary is getting there. Same with like the movie scene. They weren't doing a lot. Last year was like the big jump into the movie scene. And so I think they're just a little behind on that.
Well,
so
no.
Hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, thank you. I tend to do it too with music scenes. You know how music drops into particular, like out here in Oregon, like doom metal is huge. Like it's a metal. Well, people disagree with me, but anyways, Portland's a really good doom metal scene, and I enjoy that. Haley, I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned TikTok and you creating video. You want to talk about other things that you create and like how listeners can connect with the art that you're creating, and like where to find you and it and all that stuff?
Oh, so mostly just like TikTok and Instagram are our main platforms. I don't really do a lot of things outside of social media yet, that's per se. But I just mostly try to talk about a lot of things because I am a lot of different things. I'm mixed Indigenous. I'm LGBTQ. I'm also Two-Spirit. I'm adopted. And so there's many, many different things for me to talk about and for people to connect to. And I just want to be able to share my story online, to have people watching and to be there with me on my journey. It's like, it sounds weird for me to say this, but my family, I guess, is like on TikTok and Instagram for me. It literally feels like a little family for me, and they've been supporting me for many years. And yeah, I just feel amazing.
No, it's such a great thing, and I think it's always complicated when we talk about like online environments and in person, and obviously there's trade-offs. But like I said, even like in doing this show, like you really could not even possibly do it a few years ago, or like to really be able to easily understand what somebody's about, who's an artist, what they think about, and then be able to connect with them and, have a conversation. And I realize that a lot. People's like, where do you get your guests? I'm like, well, I know some of them, but I don't travel around the world, but you do, and what you're able to see and come in contact. So I just wanted to let you know, I really appreciate what you do. And I wanted to let you know, as far as the questions you interrogate, I think about them a lot. And I think they're really important during these times. I've found myself honestly finding a lot of the categories that I understood throughout my life to be complete bullshit. Whiteness, and then going into my own history and class stuff. Once you start to interrogate these type of things, you start to kind of open up more questions and hopefully understand ourselves better in it. And I appreciate you doing that.
Oh no, of course. I love it. Just like I felt myself like I was so alone doing this. And when I started posting it, I realized I'm like, there's so many people going through what I'm going through right now. I'm not alone. And I have so much support out there. I just need to trust that it's out there and that I'm not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Haley, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I really appreciate what you do, as I mentioned, and also want to thank your helpful friend Tara for connecting us. She's quite wonderful, and just want to wish you the best of luck in everything, and good luck with filming. And I look to be able to see what you do and learn more about you as we go along. But thank you so much for showing up on Something Rather Than Nothing, and keep creating.
Of course. Thank you so much again for having me. This was so lovely.
All right. Have a great day, and so nice to meet you.
Thanks, you too, Ken. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.